Otto von Bismarck once said that the Balkans were the powder keg of Europe. But what if I told you the fuse to ignite this powder keg was one man and one bottle, and when put together, they would lead to the deaths of 140,000 people? Hi, I'm Crate13, and happy Halloween! It took me a minute to figure out what was scary enough to talk about during my Halloween episode, but I eventually came to the conclusion that there really wasn't anything scarier than being in the Balkans during the 1990s. So, how did it get so bad? Today, we're talking about the Dorde Martinovic Incident. But as always, background. Our story is set in the lovely nation of Yugoslavia, full of beautiful mountains and coastlines, charismatic dictators, and lots of ethnic minorities. And lots of them. This will be a very important detail for later. Yugoslavia was one of those artificially created nations after the First World War that really didn't make sense to exist. The whole war was fought because Austria-Hungary wanted to de facto annex Serbia. But after the war, Serbia ended up getting lumped into some monarchical union with a bunch of Serbians, Croats, Bosnians, Macedonians, Slovaks, and Albanians. Ugh. Anyways, fast forward over 20 years of history, and Joseph Tito, a communist, comes into power and dissolves the monarchy. Now, Tito internationally was hated by both the Americans and the Soviets, but domestically, all of Yugoslavia adored this man. It didn't matter if you were a Muslim in Sarajevo or if you were a Christian in Belgrade. Every Yugoslavian citizen loved Tito. Now, with all of these different ethnicities just shoved into one nation, there's bound to be some tension and a lot of nationalistic movements spark up. And there were, but Tito was always able to just calm them down and keep everyone happy somehow. And he did that for 37 years. That was until he died in 1980. With Tito gone, things fell apart. The center, it could not hold. Each ethnic group tried to get more and more power over their counterparts. This was the case of Serbia and Kosovo. Serbia being home to Serbs, and Kosovo being home to Albanians, but also at the same time being a part of Serbia as a semi-autonomous region. Importantly, Albanians are Muslims. Now, there is a lot of hate between these two groups, okay? It goes back hundreds of years, all the way back to Ottoman rule. If I was just to cover the details of Balkan on Balkan racism, this video would easily be 8 hours. Basically, all you need to know for this story is Kosovo is part of Serbia. Serbia is part of Yugoslavia. And in Kosovo, they are majority Albanian Muslims. And they have a small population of Serbians living there. So, 5 years after Tito's death, Yugoslavia was held together with duct tape and prayers. But on May 1st, 1985, one of the nails in the coffin was laid. Sorry, buddy. This is your last video and I forgot to cut you on. Much better. Dorde Martinovic was a Serbian farmer who lived in Kosovo, who was admitted to a hospital with a glass bottle inserted into, you can guess where, and it had broken. Ugh. Martinovic was questioned as to what happened, and it's from here two stories emerged. The first, and the one Martinovic told at the hospital, was that he was tending his field when a group of Albanian men came up and ambushed him. They held him down and gave him the 13 Reasons Why Season 2 treatment. The second story being the one he told military police upon questioning because, they wanted to catch the maniacs that did this to him. The second story was there was no assault. Martinovic went out into his field, found a fence post and a bottle. He then placed said bottle on the fence post, dropped his drawers, and proceeded to get intimate with the bottle. Eventually it would break, and he had to go to the hospital, but he was too embarrassed to admit what had happened. The military, they weren't convinced, and due to the potential ethnic hate crime element, they sent Martinovich to Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, to be examined by a board of doctors. One doctor from each province of Yugoslavia. They came to the conclusion it would have been impossible for him to do this to himself. They claimed the wounds were too substantial and that it would take the force of 2 to 3 men to do this. How did they come to that conclusion? I want to know what series of tests they ran to come to the conclusion that the damage was only accomplishable by 2 to 3 men. I'm just curious. How did they discover this? What was their reasoning? Anyways, with this announcement, Serbian nationalist media went wild. They demanded justice for not only Martinovich, but all Serbs in Kosovo, and demanded that the Serbian provisional government cracked down on Kosovo's autonomy. This went beyond some nightly news segment. This was a case that gripped the entire nation. It was something akin to the Dreyfus affair in France or the O.J. Simpson trial in America. Everyone had an opinion, and those lines, they quickly became tribal. Serbian nationalists would then compare what happened to Martinovich to that of victims of Ottoman impalement. Yes, from the Vlad the Impaler dude, that kind of impalement. His behind became a martyr for Serbia. Look, they made paintings of this guy that were definitely very sacrilegious. And they wrote poems about what happened. One of the poems I will now recite. With a broken bottle on a stake, as though through a lamb but alive. They were through Dorde Martinovic, as if with their first and heavy steps into their future field they treaded, when out of the opium and pain, Dorde Martinovic came around, as if from the long past Turkish times, he woke up on a stake. Which, how embarrassing. I can't imagine if this happened to me and people were making paintings and poems forever lamenting the incident and just etching it into history forever. If he would have just told the truth, this would have been forgotten. People would have laughed at him for probably a couple of years, but there would be no murals, there would be no poems, and there would be no genocides because of this. Serbian and Kosovoan relations never recovered. And that went for other Muslim regions of Yugoslavia as well, like Bosnia. In 1989, Slobodan Milosevic was elected president of Serbia, largely due to his nationalistic stance, and that was fueled by the bottle incident. In 1991, Croatia and Slovenia declared independence due to Slobodan's policies. Serbian tanks then rolled in, and the Yugoslav wars had begun. They would go on to kill 140,000 people, many of which were civilians, killed in targeted ethnic cleansing attacks. Now, was this guy playing around with the bottle the reason Yugoslavia broke apart? No, but he definitely sped it up. You can think about it like in World War I, how all the nations signing all these alliances and all these treaties, that didn't start World War I, but it sped it up and it did not help peace at all. Same deal here. So, what lesson can we learn from this? If you get caught being a little weirdo on your farm field, just be honest, because hundreds of thousands of lives might depend on it. Well, that was an interesting one. It's kind of quick, but I was happy to make the video. This helmet, I've actually been waiting to break it out for a video. It's a real Serbian helmet from the 1980s. So it's likely it actually saw action in the Yugoslav wars. It's got the dude's name on it, which is really interesting. So I was excited to bring this one out. Just the whole story reminded me of a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, with just how one little lie just snowballs into this massive ordeal. And I know the Yugoslav wars aren't funny, but you gotta have gallows humor. But if you enjoy this video, if you enjoy stories about crazy people in history, I got another one that's just as cool, if not cooler, all about this Japanese guy who dropped his business and went to Afghanistan to go fight for the Mujahideen during the 80s. It's a cool video, awesome time. I hope you go check it out after this. But this is part of the video where I say that I hope you enjoyed whatever food you decided to eat or whatever poop you decided to poop while watching this video. I'm Crate13, and I hope you have a fantastic day.